Hey guys, it's been a while. Boy, yeah, it's been kind of a hectic ride since the last video. I've been really busy with work and with planning shoots, and I just came back from vacation. I went to Rome for the very first time. I went to Greece and Turkey. I think they pronounce it Turkey, I think. And I went to a bunch of different places I haven't been before, and this was my second time going overseas, and it was absolutely fantastic. My time there was absolutely fantastic. Rome was unbelievable. Like I did not want to come back, and I mean that in a very serious and bitter way. I did not want to come back. Why did I come back? But that's not the point. The point of the video today is to review a camera that I recently purchased called the Panasonic S5IIX. Now, I've had this camera for about 3 days, and the day that I got the camera I had a shoot, and so I kind of had to learn how to use it on the fly. And luckily its menu is very similar to the GH5, the user interface is very similar to GH5, even the button layout is very similar to the GH5. So I had a very easy time learning how to use this camera, and I have to say, I love using this camera. And though I loved using the camera, there are certainly things that I do not like about this camera. And so today's video will be the pros and cons of the S5IIX, in my opinion. So first, let's go over the cons. I like to give the cons first because I like to talk about what is bad and what is good. I like to end on a high note. So we're gonna start on the cons. So the first thing that I don't necessarily like about this camera, and I understand that it is just the limitations of what they could put into this body, is the 6K open gate at 420. Now what that basically means is that there's less color information when you use open gate. And I know that that's good for, probably for social media, for quick things like this, but it would be nice to have 6K 422 when recording to an SSD. Currently, there's only 420, and it's not in ProRes, it's in MOV file. You're still getting a good image, but you can't really do much with the colors, so I can't really recommend using 6K other than for, social media things, quick things. 4K 60 is only available with an SSD. It would be nice if they gave us an option for 4K 60 on a faster SD card, or if they gave us the option to be able to use CF Express cards. But unfortunately, the only way to get 4K 60, and not 4K 60 in C4K, just regular 4K 60, is with an SSD. Now that's not too big of an issue because, SSDs are relatively affordable and you can just mount them onto your camera. Or you can use this specific SanDisk SSD that I recently bought that is actually a lifesaver and a money saver. Relatively inexpensive, it goes right into the side of the camera, it's low profile. They go to 256 gigabytes, up to 400 Mbps. You can't record the highest things, like I think the highest this camera records is 2 gigabytes per second. You can also not really use it for ProRes because the ProRes files are pretty fast, but you can use them for, again, 4K 60, 4K 24. You can even use it for OpenGate, which is what I'm using right now. And OpenGate actually is not too fast. It's only about 200 megabytes per second. A third issue that I have with the camera is the 180 frames per second. It's only in full HD. I don't understand how they couldn't get, 4K 180 and at least 2K You know, the VariCam has 2K at 240. You have the Sonys who have 4K at 120. You can't even get that with this camera. You would think that they would be able to get that. Again, it could just be a hardware, software type of thing. Maybe there will be an update where this camera can actually output 4K 120 or 4K 180, or you know, at least 2K 120 or 180 in the future. But at this point in time, it's just 180 FPS at 180, which is the same as what the GH5 outputs. Next is the electronic stabilization. This camera's in-body stabilization is absolutely phenomenal. The E-stabilization adds to that, but not with its drawbacks, because when you use it, you get this weird, like, wobbly look. I haven't experimented enough with it to find out how to optimize that or how to work with it, but at the current moment I just leave it off. I think the in-body stabilization is good enough, even when I'm using lenses like this that have no image stabilization at all. I still think it's great. So a quick update. The E-stabilization is great if you're not using an autofocus lens. I used the Sigma 18-35, and I'm using on the adapter, which is the same adapter that I'm using for these Nikkor primes, and there is no none of that wobbly. This next one is a small thing. When you switch from SSD to SD, there's actually a, you know, like an 8 to 10 second buffer. It would also be nice if it was just, you know, you just press a button and it's automatic. You know, the Blackmagic pocket cameras do that, where you can switch from an SSD to SD card to CFast. There's no loading time, there's no wait time, it just kind of happens. Again, that might be a firmware update. It's kind of a pain in the butt. That's one thing that I didn't like about the VariCam, where when you're switching, anytime you switch anything, any type of resolution, you have to turn off the camera and then turn it back on. It takes 18 to 20 seconds. It's reminiscent of that, and it's a thing that I wish that they could have gotten rid of. Now, this is another thing. It's not a huge issue at all. You just turn it off. But if you don't turn off audio output to monitor, there is a ton of latency, like a ton of latency. I remember when I first started using my monitor, it was almost unusable, because there would be like maybe a fourth of a second of lag where I would turn the camera and then the monitor would read it. And it got frustrating, but luckily all you have to do is turn audio output off and the lag becomes so insignificant, it becomes a lot more usable. So this might not be the best camera to put a wireless follow focus on, or to have someone pull focus off of, in my personal opinion. Even if you're using a Teradek, you're still going to get that input lag. And as all focus pullers know, we cannot pull focus very well if there's input lag, and it becomes a headache, and people think you're doing your job bad, and you can't say, no, it's not me, it's the input lag, because, you know, people don't want excuses, they just want results. You cannot see the monitor information on the onboard camera monitor and on your external monitor at the same time. It's either you're going to see it on your camera monitor and you can make adjustments that way, or you're going to see it on your HDMI monitor and your touchscreen is basically useless unless you're using touch autofocus. Other than that, you can go through the menus, and then the menu will work on there, but the moment you go back to the screen where you can see the image, it's one or the other. It's a very interesting thing to leave out. The GH5 does that automatically, and there's an option to turn the read off. Again, it might be something that they put into a firmware update, but I really hope that they fix that. Now that we're done with the cons, let's go over to what this camera does amazing, in my opinion. Going back to the very first con, this camera has 6K open gate, which means that it's going to have a lot of anamorphic options, which is fantastic. And not only that, but you can use the entire sensor. What's the point in having a full frame sensor if you can't even use the full frame? Next, and this is such a huge thing for Panasonic users, is autofocus. The autofocus is great, asterisk. I can finally use a Panasonic camera on a gimbal and not worry about the focus going in and out or searching a lot. Now, there are some drawbacks where it's not the best at sticking to one subject. Again, this might be an update later on, but currently it might be stuck to one person, but then if there's another person in frame, it might go to that and then go back. I still haven't figured out how to, fix that in camera or if it's even possible, but I'm still so grateful for their autofocus. It is fantastic, smooth autofocus. It makes me happy. The next thing is SSD recording, and that makes everything so much more affordable for shooters like me who might not have a lot of money coming in, especially with the strike that's going on. Now I don't have to spend $300 on a V90 SD card that reads 300 megabytes per second. Now I can have an SSD that reads up to 1,000 megabytes per second and is, $90 to $100. Or I can use a little mini Samsung SSD that I was showing you guys before, and I can spend $30 on that and it reads up to 400 megabytes per second. Actually, a little bit faster than that because I can record 4K 60, which should be 600 megabytes per second. I don't have to worry about destroying my bank, and they're really small, and it's so good. Thank you, Panasonic, for allowing us to use SSDs with the camera. You are saving us money, and you're saving us money with the camera body even. So thank you for that. Next is ProRes recording internally, and I am so happy for that. The only downside is that you need an SSD, but again, because SSDs are so affordable, that becomes less of an issue. And actually becomes more preferable because now we can have more space, like 1 terabyte for $100, and we can just keep recording and keep recording and keep recording, and it's fantastic. And not only that, we can record in other recording modes onto the SSD as well, so it's not specifically for ProRes. Next, it's just got a lot of recording options. ProRes, MOV, MP4. I honestly think of them as tiers. Like if I'm just doing something for social media, then I'm gonna use MP4 because those are smaller file sizes. If I wanna get everything, if I want everything under the sun, I'm gonna do MOV. And if if a client specifically wants ProRes, or if I feel like working with ProRes, then I will go to the ProRes files. There are so many different options that you have, and you can even filter through them, and it's so great, and I love it, and it's fantastic. This camera is very affordable. At less than $2,200 without tax, you get such an amazing camera. I was considering getting the FX3 as my B cam because it's got the good autofocus, it's got a lot of support. The only thing that held me back was that I need Sony glass, and it also wouldn't match my other cameras, my GH5 and my VariCam LT. But then I remember this camera, and I'm like, you know what, this is great. I can get this for almost half the price of that, and get a 50mm lens for $48 because of the promotion that they're doing. I got a 50mm Panasonic L-mount lens for $50 because it was on a deal. $400 off. Like Panasonic's doing a crazy deal. If you guys are looking for a good camera with a good deal, you can get a lens for relatively cheap with the bundle, and you save $400. Get this camera. Go to B&H, Adorama, Unique Photo, which is where I bought this one. Shout out to Unique Photo. They're out in Fairfield, New Jersey. And finally, the #1 pro, in my opinion, about this camera is the sensor and the color science. If you've seen any of my previous videos on the VariCam, I rave about the VariCam's color science. I think it is fantastic. I think it does skin tones, specifically colored people's skin tones, very well. It makes us look good. And I mean really good. And I can't necessarily say the same for Sony or Canon. I think Canon does it better. Canon's always had great color science, but I think specifically with Panasonic's sensors, they do such a great job with skin tones. They do an absolutely fantastic job with skin tones. I would highly recommend Panasonic's S5IIX because of their sensor. So what do you guys think? For people who have bought the camera, or for people who haven't bought the camera but have researched it, or for people who have worked with the camera and used it, what do you guys think? Let me know in the comments below what you guys think. Honest opinions. I don't want any fluff. I want to know what you love and what you hate about this camera, because you know, this is a community where we should be sharing our true feelings about the camera, because sometimes these companies see these videos and we want them to know what we truly think about their cameras, because then we get true results versus, you know, stuff that we don't want. Like for example, the FX3 did not have shutter angle for some reason. It's a cinema camera without shutter angle. But the cry from the consumers, they were heard, and that change was made. But our voices are very important, and so I want to make sure that, you know, we're all in this and we're all giving our honest opinions. So I want to hear your honest opinions about the camera, even about this video, and I want to start a discussion. With that being said, guys, thank you so much again for watching this video. Leave some comments in the description. And until next time, happy shooting, stay safe, and stay creative.